What's going on, everybody? You're listening to the Point2Point NHL Recap Show, Season 2, Episode 34. I'm Pascal Pryor, joined by Mark Haverlack. Mark, we had the draft pass. We've had free agencies kind of pass by now. Most of the players are signed. There's a few players still left to sign here. What's going on with you, though, dude?
Yeah, dude. I mean, off-season's kind of in full effect here. A lot of the moves were kind of done before July 1st, I felt like. It wasn't the most entertaining free agency. I've just been kind of deeping. I don't even know what I'm saying right now. Diving deep into the off-season realistically. And I don't know, man. Like, do you feel like there's still like I know it's not like high quality, but I feel like there's still a decent amount of names out there that like played last year that don't have a home yet. So I'm kind of still curious to see what happens on that aspect. And like everyone's saying we're going to have a lot of trades this summer. I really don't know if that's going to be true or not, but I don't know, man. I'm feeling a little bit different this offseason, to be quite honest. I'm kind of like a little bit more like excited, even though it's like basically all done. And I think that we could have a little bit more happening here.
Dude, I definitely hope we get some trades, because if we don't get trades, like, I agree with you. There is still a decent amount of players that played last year that are unsigned, but as you said, like the quality isn't really there. So if we do see any signings, it's going to be like 1-year deals, 2-year deals with low AAVs, right? Like we might even see some PTOs here coming up. So I'm hoping we get some trades here to really spice things up for the summer. While it is a summer though, and it is kind of the off season, we're going to be back every week, and we're going to be starting off a new kind of episode protocol, I guess, and we're kind of going to be doing deep dives on each team around the NHL and looking at what they did so far this offseason and what they'll look like going into next season. So let's get things started right away. We're going to start off with Canada's capital, the Ottawa Senators. They haven't had too much movement here. The team also has come out and said they don't really want to spend to the cap, which is quite interesting. Despite that, though, we have seen them bring in a couple players here in free agency to kind of fill in the bottom of their lineup. Mark, how do you feel about their offseason so far?
Yeah, I think you kind of said it best in the sense that it's like been sort of uneventful. I mean, they haven't had a whole lot to take care of like internally, I guess. I mean, the couple RFAs that they got done, Levi Merrillainen, it seems like he might be their backup goalie next year. He played, I think, 11 or 12 games with Ottawa last year when Ullmark was out. Played actually really well. At the same time, probably deserves a shot to be the backup this year. And then the other guy that actually, there's two other guys. Fabian Zetterlund was one of them. They signed him to a 3-year deal around 4.5. And then Tyler Clevin was the other one I forgot about. They actually got him done actually fairly close after to when they got knocked out of the playoffs. I think that they really liked the way he played in that series against Toronto, and they kind of see him as like a pretty solid, big, mean, like a bottom pairing defenseman of their future. Other notable moves for the Sens in the offseason, Claude Giroux's coming back. He's going from $6.5 million on his last contract to $2 million with some performance bonuses. Other players that are coming in, I think it's just realistically another two forwards in Lars Eller and Arthur Kaliev, which they're not really spending a lot of money on. As of right now, if their lineup is kind of healthy, I've got both of those guys projecting to be on the fourth line. And actually, the other guy I'm forgetting about they traded for at the draft was Jordan Spence. Yeah. I actually think that bringing in Jordan Spence is probably their best move of the offseason so far. I really like Jordan Spence. I feel like that he had a pretty limited role with LA once Drew Doughty came back. And I think in Ottawa, he could get a bigger role, especially there's some uncertainty around Nick Jensen and whether he's going to be ready to start the season or not. And I think that just bringing in a guy like Spence, who's younger, doesn't make a lot of money, has NHL experience and can provide some stability. And he's pretty solid at both ends of the ice while being like a pretty effective puck mover as well. I guess the question for him is like, he really got exposed in the playoffs and he was kind of sheltered. But I think for a team like Ottawa, when you did get better defensively last year, You kind of change the way you played, and then it's like Nick Jensen. I feel like let's be real. When you look at the Chychrun trade, a lot of people say they lost the trade, and I would agree, but I still think they got a good piece in Nick Jensen and a guy that they needed, and he helped them a lot last year, right? So it's like if you didn't trade for Jordan Spence and Nick Jensen's not starting the season, then it's like either Clevin is going up to play in the top 4 on his opposite side, or Nicholas Matin-Paolo is going from a third pair role last year to a second, right? So I really like this Spence pickup. I like the fourth line center pickup in Lars Eller, a guy that's got experience as well. And with Claude Giroux, I honestly just never really thought he was leaving. They still got a couple million in cap space if they wanted to do something, but like you mentioned at the beginning, it doesn't really seem like they want to spend to the cap this year. So I would think for the most part, unless they kind of have a trade for player in, player out, that they're probably done. And this is probably what their team is looking like going into the season, unless they do sign one of these free agents that's kind of left here.
Yeah, for me, I know a lot of people are kind of up in arms about them not spending to the cap. The way I'm looking at it, though, it's like, okay, you have the cap going up this year. And when you look at their roster, like going into this offseason, you mentioned they didn't have too much business they had to do, right? Like the big thing for them was re-signing Claude Giroux, but Claude Giroux's at this point in his career, he's not a guy that's going to be demanding like $6 million, right? I'm looking at their lineup right now in front of me, and outside of Claude Giroux in their top 9, all the rest of those guys are locked up, right? So it's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to go out and sign? Like, if you're spending to the cap, if you're Ottawa, that means maybe instead of going out and getting Spence, you get a similar player, but you're going to be paying him a higher AAV, or you're going to be paying a fourth liner, like an overpay. Or the other way is maybe you move somebody in your top 9 out. But we saw last year the trade deadline, Ottawa already made some moves there within their top 9, bringing in Zetterlund and Cousins, right? So I think for Ottawa, like, their very minimal movement was honestly the best thing for them. It's like they made the playoffs last year. They got a young core. Their lineups filled pretty well. Just let these guys grow together for another season. And as you mentioned, the cap space they do have, like that's going to be an asset when we're in the regular season, right? Like if they're in a playoff spot and they want to make a trade and have to bring on cap space, like they're going to be able to do that, which I think is going to benefit them greatly. I want to talk about their draft, Mark. How did you feel about their draft? Of course, they took Logan Hensler in the first round. They didn't have too many high.
It's 6 picks, I think, this year.
How did you feel about their draft?
Like taking a look at it, I'm not really too familiar with Bruno Idzan and Dmitry Isayev, 2 guys that they picked in the 5th and 6th round. But besides that, they did take 2 goaltenders this year, one in Lucas Beckman and one in Andrei Trifimov, I think is how you pronounce it. Lucas Beckman was kind of talked about as like probably around like a top 5 goalie in this year's draft. And I don't think he was one of the top 5 goalies picked. They got him in the 4th round. I quite like that pick for Ottawa. It's a guy who's also playing in the queue, and they can kind of keep a close eye on. I believe he is going back next year. He's got some size and some pretty solid movement to his game. So, I mean, that's a pretty good project to take on. Obviously, there's going to be it's going to be quite a while before he would make an impact on the team, but I actually like that pickup as a goalie prospect for Ottawa. The Blake Vanek pick, I'm not super familiar with him because the sense he only really came to the USHL at the end of the season. He was playing high school hockey. Son of Thomas Vanek. It's probably a pretty good bet to take in the 3rd round. There wasn't really a lot of like notable players at that point that I think teams could have picked. There was kind of like a couple late round guys that went that I thought were probably going to go in the top 90. But I really like their pick with Logan Hensler here at 23. I think it's really hard to acquire right defensemen, and I know they just went out and got Jordan Spence right after that, but I think Logan Hensler is a guy that's going to spend a couple more years in school. Who knows by the end of when he's ready, is Nick Jensen on the Sens? Is Artem Zub even on the Sens? So it's like them having that many right-handed D, I don't think is really a problem. And it's not like, why are they drafting a right-handed D? They've got 3 solid ones right now. I think by the time he's ready for the NHL, it probably won't be like a huge log jam. He's a really good skater. He can move the puck. He's just not the most offensive, but he's pretty sound defensively, right? And he played in the NCAA last season. They also traded down with Nashville to 23, and they still got him. And with that third-round pick they got for trading down, they used that third to go get Jordan Spence. So you trade down 2 picks, you get 2 right-handed defensemen. So I would say overall, like I'd probably give them like a B on their draft, maybe B minus. Like I don't think B minus is bad by any means. I would just say it was probably average, maybe like a little bit above average, considering that I really liked their first round pick, and I had him slotted a little bit higher, like in the top 20. So, I mean, yeah, I think it was a pretty solid draft for Ottawa, considering I didn't really love their draft the year before. Like Stales' first draft, like Yakimchuk probably shouldn't have went there. Who'd they get in this? Oh yeah, Gabriel Eliasson they got in the second round, that huge defenseman from Barrie. Yep. He didn't have a good season this year. So, and meanwhile, Cole Hudson's sitting there on the board, right? So I just didn't think that they had a good draft last year. I think it definitely was a little bit better this year.
Yeah, I'm looking at their draft this year, and I think it was a lot better. As you mentioned, the right-hand D thing, like you got Zoop, he's got 2 years left on his deal. Spence, he's done at the end of this year, and he's probably going to get a pretty big upgrade in pay. And then Jensen's done at the end of this year as well, right? So if you're Ottawa, you got Sanderson, Chabot on the left-hand side for the next 3 years. They're both locked in there at least, right? So you got to start thinking about what the future is going to look like on the right-hand side. To be honest, Spence, I like him a fair bit, but like I don't know if he's going to be in the long-term plans of the Senators, right? Same like Jensen, of course, he's aging now. He's not going to be in the long-term plans. So now that you got Hensler, and then you also got Yakimchuk, who you took last year, like these 2 guys are probably going to be up in the NHL within the next 3 years, and you can start to see what it's going to look like after maybe Spence moves on, maybe Jensen moves on, even Zub, right? Like he's got 2 years left as well. Like maybe he's a guy that you can move at some point if Yakimchuk or Hensler come up. And then it's sort of the same thing with the net, right? Like you got Allmark in net, but I think you got to start looking past Allmark. What's it going to look like towards the end of his deal? Because as he starts to get towards the end of the deal, right, like that might come back and be more of a tandem. And maybe this goalie that they took, he's ready, maybe he's not, but it's good that they're looking at that and acknowledging that and really kind of still planning for the future, which I like. Mark, we did mention Carter Yakimchuk a bit here. I want to ask you about him. We know that last year he had a pretty impressive training camp and preseason. Some people thought he should have been on the team right out of the gate and gotten his trial. What do you think the plans are with him going into next season?
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of surprising with him, right? He basically almost made the team. I'm pretty sure he was on the last cut. And then he went back to the WHL, where I thought he kind of had a pretty underwhelming season for the most part. If you're kind of comparing to his rookie season, I mean, for a guy who put up I think he put up 30 goals or almost 30 goals in his draft year, he drops to 17 and he's under a point per game, right? Where he was over a point per game before. So, I think that this really depends on Nick Jensen's status, on whether he kind of starts the year or not. Maybe he does get like a 9-game trial and maybe Jensen's back by then. I'll be honest with you, I don't really see him being a full-time NHLer this season. I think that they've kind of got their 3 spots filled. I'm like I said, I wasn't really a fan of where he was picked in the draft. It doesn't mean that I don't think he's going to be a good NHL player. I just kind of thought that there were other players that were still on the board that probably should have went before him. But yeah, I think it's definitely possible that he gets a trial in the NHL, 9-game trial. But also, I wouldn't be that surprised if he didn't, to be honest with you, because they really like that Nicholas Matinpalo guy too. Like he played some pretty good third pairing minutes for them last year when they did have injuries. Played for Finland in 4 nations. Like I think that's kind of like their like 6'7" guy in and out of the lineup, and it's probably a better guy to have as a 6'7" than Yakimchuk. You prefer Yakimchuk to be developing like whatever he's doing, right, and not kind of in and out in the lineup. So if I had to put a percentage chance that he makes the opening night roster, I would probably put it at probably a 30% chance.
You put that high. See, I think I'd
Like when I say opening night roster, though, it doesn't mean I think he's on the team the whole
yeah,
season. It's more like he's gonna make the team like Luchenko last year.
yeah,
Like he made the opening night roster, but he played 5 games, got sent down. Right? I would just say it's that high because of Jensen's uncertainty and injury.
yeah.
I think if he was healthy, it would probably be like 10% or under.
Yeah, I can see that because the way I'm looking at it, it really does look like on paper here, like Ottawa has their decor set, right? Like they got their 7 defensemen for next year, and then, pardon me, it's where does Yakimchuk fit into that, right? And I understand the whole like, do you want to give him his trial, but also it's, do you want to be sending him up and down? How, right? Like you don't want to be hurting his development, especially considering last year he didn't really take that step in his draft year +1. Mark, I want to ask you one more question here before we move on to our next team. Based off everything that Ottawa's done in this offseason, what grade would you give them?
Okay. Yeah, like they didn't have a whole lot to do overall. The contracts are pretty good that they signed.
Yeah.
Zetterlund, I mean, he's kind of a bit of a wild card. He's shown some really good glimpses, but he was pretty bad when he got to Ottawa. But I think he's a guy you can count on to bounce back. Honestly, just because they're not spending to the cap, and I think that they could use another piece or two, I think I'm going to go with a B.
Yeah, I was gonna go with a B as well. For me, it's
Like, do
not as
you
much. Go ahead.
go ahead? Oh, so I was going to say, do you not think like right now, I got their lines as Kachuk, Stutzel, Batherson, Giroux, Cousins, Zetterlund, and then Greg, Pinto, Perron, Kaliev, Eller, Amadio.
Yeah.
That's like Nick Cousins is scratched. Do you not feel like they could use another top 6 forward? Because I think ideally, if you could move Zetterlund or Giroux down, like you'd be in a lot better spot, like with a lot more threat.
See, I look at it and I kind of agree with that way, but then that means you have Perron or Greg on your fourth line, and I'm just looking at it like Perron. I don't really think he fits on the fourth line that well. Like their fourth line right now, honestly, I kind of like it. Like you got Eller, Kaliev, Adam Audio, and then you can throw Cousins in there as well, right? Like that's going to be a pretty gritty fourth line. I don't really know. Like yeah, Perron
But
can
what
play that
if?
style, but
But see, my thought mentality is okay. If they go out and try to acquire a top 6 forward, they don't have a first next year. I would probably assume a guy like Ridley Gregg is in the trade.
yeah. And
So that's why I'm like Zetterlund or Giroux could probably move down.
And see,
You
if it
know,
was a trade, I'd be more willing to, but I guess I'm more looking at it like free agency wise. It's like based off some of the contracts that happened this year. If I'm Ottawa, it's like, do we really want to be overpaying a guy to be playing on our top 6 or third line when we're
the
not
thing is, there's
ready
no
for
one
that
left
yet?
available though
Yeah,
that I think is like better. Like they're not going to go out and get Jack Roslovic. Like I don't think he's really an upgrade on what they have. It's more like if there was an available trade for a player that they could make work, you know what I mean, with sending out some futures, maybe a current roster player. I get what you mean. Putting Greg or Perron on the fourth line is probably not ideal, like $4+ million, but I would just assume a younger player like Greg is
yeah,
probably in the trade. Maybe even Shane Pinto, depending on the type of level of player that they are acquiring, right? So I just look at them and I feel like they kind of lack a top 6 forward. I'm curious to see what Dylan Cousins can do in a full season there.
yeah.
I think he's definitely going to be an upgrade on Josh Norris long term. And I feel like if I'm just kind of nitpicking something else, I'd maybe just go for another depth defenseman just because of the uncertainty of Nick Jensen. Because then at worst, it's like you can run a 23-man roster with 8D and 13 forwards. One guy that I honestly look at, dude, that I feel like could fit in well as like a 7th D there is Calvin DeHaan. I think he's a pretty stable, like defensive defenseman who's from just outside of Ottawa as well. He's not going to be asking for a lot of money. I think his salary's been around like 800 to 900K the past 2 years. Like, I think this is a guy that they could probably plug in. He's also a guy that, like, he knows sometimes he's not playing every single night. I've always kind of been a fan of him, man. So I don't know. I think that regardless if it's Ottawa or not, I think Calvin DeHaan would be kind of a sneaky good depth pickup on defense for someone.
Yeah, I think they could maybe use a depth forward for sure and potentially a depth defenseman, but I give them a B as well. I'm just looking at it. It's like their roster was already pretty filled out going into the offseason. If they were going to make some sort of move bringing a player in, like it would have had to been something where it's a player in, player out. I think the UFA route would have been very hard for them. They would have had to overpay for a player that maybe doesn't really fit in their plans that well. Like sometimes just holding still and letting your young core grow together for another year is the better option. So I'm gonna give him a B here.
All right, I got one question before we move on.
Yeah,
If no other moves were made before the start of the season for any team, if every team was going into the season like they were constructed right now, do you think Ottawa's getting back in the playoffs next year?
I would say yes.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
would say yes. It's funny because honestly, looking at this offseason, I think there's a lot more teams around the NHL that you can say got worse. Where it's like how many how many teams around the NHL really got better this
Dude,
offseason?
that's what I'm
That you can
saying,
look
man.
at. I feel like it's most teams. It's like, yeah, you're kind of the same that you were last year, or it's like you got worse. So for me, like looking at Ottawa, I think they're kind of the same as what they were last year. But then you have all these young players that got playoff experience last year are going to be together for another year. We're going to see a full season of Dylan Cousins and Zetterlund, right? Like I think this is a team that is going to be back in the playoffs next year, without a doubt. Like, do you think they'll be back in the playoffs or no?
I'm a little bit on the edge. I'll be honest. I'm just trying to really like kind of figure out who would kind of be in or not. I think when I'm looking at it, I do strongly believe the Rangers will get back in. And it's just like, who are they replacing? Are they replacing a wild card team? Are they just going to totally take that spot from the Devils and the Devils bow out and there's still five Atlantic teams? Do the Rangers pass Montreal? I don't really know, to be honest with you. I would say right now I'd probably give them like a 60% chance of making the playoffs, probably a
Yeah.
little bit more optimistic, but I think that there are a couple teams that could probably push for a playoff spot. And it's just kind of deciding who could be the odd man out. And I think obviously being a wild card team, Ottawa is kind of in that conversation, right? So I'd say I'm optimistic on them making it, but I wouldn't be super surprised if they didn't.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. Let's take a look at another team now. They got new management. They also the first overall pick this year. It's the New York Islanders. We saw them make most of their moves on draft day. That included trading Noah Dobson for two first round picks in the draft. Mark, let's start off by talking about the draft with them. How did you feel about their draft?
Yeah, I mean they really prioritize to increase their prospect pool this year. Like I think they're a team that's basically done a complete 180 when you talk about prospects over the last couple seasons. They kind of had a couple guys they drafted before. I think it all really started with the Cole Eiserman pick, where the prospect pool started to become stronger, and then
Yep.
it kind of just kept getting added from there with the Callum Ritchie trade, and then 3 first-round picks this year. Like they only have a couple guys really to note of, like before that Cole Eiserman pick, in like Quinn Finley and like Danny Nelson, who are both playing in the NCAA, but were more like mid-round picks that definitely could make the team and probably make an impact. But I don't really see them being like top 6 guys, to be quite honest with you. But I think that the Islanders, for the most part, dude, like this draft was a home run for the organization. I think they got a good amount of pieces that can make an impact on their team in the future. And it's kind of Islanders fans are more seeing the direction of the team and like, yeah, we might be taking a couple of years step back. Maybe they will miss the playoffs again, but I mean, there's kind of some optimism instead of being stuck in the mushy middle and trying to compete and either getting out in the first round or not making the playoffs. And it's kind of just this cycle that keeps going, right? Like after they made the conference finals twice in a row. But I mean, we'll begin with Matthew Schaefer. I mean, me and you are very familiar with him. Even though he didn't play a lot this year, just the type of style that he plays. I compare him to like a modern day Miro Heiskanen, if he could probably hit his potential. He's probably not going to blow you away with the amount of points he'll probably put up at the NHL level. I could be totally wrong about this. I just think that he might not be like a point per game defenseman, but he probably could be hitting like 60. You know what I mean? Consistently while playing some really solid defense. So I love the Matthew Schaefer pick. I think that no doubt he was the best player available in the draft. Then when you start going, they trade Noah Dobson, right? Ideally, right before it happened, it wasn't surprising he got traded, but I feel like as the offseason started, the number came out for projection on a contract. They seemed to negotiate, didn't really seem to go anywhere. They decided to move on. I guess I'm a little surprised they moved on from him so soon, considering how young he is. I guess they just didn't want to pay the price tag and would prefer to have 2 more prospects. I mean, with both of these picks, I love Victor Eklund.
Yep.
I was texting you through in the draft. I mean, I was like, I'm going to be pissed if the Islanders end up getting him because for the most part, he was rated around the top 10. I think he was a top 10 prospect in the draft, but because of his size, I think he's went later. I think he's got a lot of similarities in his game to Logan Stankoven, to be quite honest with you. He's kind of a little guy, scores goals. He's a bull. He's not afraid. You'd never think he's 5'11". The next pick in Kayshawn Aitchison, it's not that I don't think he's a good player because I actually had him at 13, I think. I don't really get this pick for the Islanders, to be honest, considering you took a lefty first overall. And then you just locked up Romanov to an 8-year deal at $6.25. So my question with the Aitchison pick is, do you think Aitchison is the third lefty? Do you think that Romanov or Aitchison will be on the right side eventually? Like I'm asking you, but I'm also kind of like theoretically asking like Darsh, like what's the plan here? Like, it's like, okay, you could set up your left side for the future with this, but also, to be honest with you, if they think Kayshawn Aitchison is a really good third pairing mean guy who's going to shut guys down, I'm sorry, dude, I wouldn't be taking that 17th overall where I just traded that pick for Noah Dobson. Like I said, I like the player, and I think he's probably got top 4 upside in the NHL. I just don't really get it in accordance to fit on their team.
See, I'm with you on that, but the other way I'm looking at it is I think it was really them going best available player at that point. Like you had Pittsburgh picking 11-12, I believe, and a lot of people in their mock drafts had Pittsburgh taking Eklund and Aitchison there, right? And those 2 guys fell to New York. I think when they fell to New York and the Islanders saw them both sitting there, that they knew right away. Like I agree with you, fit wise, it's like you got Pelech, you got Romanov, you got Schaefer. They're all there for 4 years at least. Of course, Romanov just signed that 8-year deal. Where does Aitchison kind of fit in? But like, man, this is a team here that they're going through kind of a rebuild, right? Like Pelech, he's a guy that teams may be interested in. I think a lot of teams would be interested in him at just over 2 million, which if you're retaining 50%, like that'd be
if you're Pelech's 5.75, right? So I mean, you could get him for 2, almost 3, under 3, right?
Under 3.
And I get that, and that's why I didn't even really mention him when I was talking about lefty, because I just feel like eventually he's probably going to get traded, right? So it's even like life without him. It's like they still kind of have a log jammed left side. If Romanov signed like a 4-year deal or something, I'd be like, okay, you know what? Yeah, I see this. But it's like, if Romanov, I don't really think the Romanov, it's a bit high for a contract for me, but the only thing that I think might make it more untradeable is the term. So it's like, say Kayshawn Aitchison's ready in 3 years, right? Like, if Romanov's not really excelling as a top 4 defenseman, is a team really going to trade like for Romanov at 6.25 for 5 years? I just think it'd be way more likely if it was like he had 1 or 2 years left on his deal, right? So it's just like, I think when Aitchison's going to be almost ready to step in the NHL, like Romanov's still going to be on the front half of this contract. Right. So I think that's where I'm more like, not that they re-signed Romanov. It was like 8 years. Like, that's what I was like, whoa, like, what is the plan here? Like, like Schaefer, Romanov, Aitchison, like I don't really know. So I mean, but and if we're going on, I know we're kind of giving this a lot of heat, but I guess that's just more my one negative. But like the rest of the draft, dude, this Daniil Prokhorov guy, I think he's going to be a super solid like net front presence. It's like second power play. He's a huge body at 6'6", right? Probably like middle of the lineup, can score goals. Some guys had him late first round. Probably one because of his size, but I'm pretty sure he's coming to the OHL next year, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm curious to see his development next year and what kind of player he could be. Luca Romano, I mean, me and you have watched a little bit of him this year. I'm not super high on him, to be quite honest with you. I don't see him being like a huge point producer at the NHL level, but I think he brings a lot of energy and he can be a little gritty, that he could be like a future 4C for them. And then besides that, I mean, Thomas Politan and Jacob Vasnica, I think is his name. Not really too familiar on those two. I know Politan a little bit. But then in net, Burke Hood, I mean, I think that's a pretty solid gamble to take for a goalie in the 6th round. I've been hearing a lot of things about him and his how technically sound he is, and he's a big body at 6'4". Never know how some of these goalies turn out, right? So, yeah. I mean, I did like that pick for the most part. If I'm looking at their draft overall, though, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm probably giving it an A or A+. Yeah. I think I'd maybe go A just because of the confusion with the Aitchison pick for me, but I mean, I don't disagree where it's like he probably was the best player available.
Personally, I'd go A+ because I think I'm just looking at it that in a draft that, like we talked about this draft, right? It's very hit and miss. There's not a lot of top end talent. Like if you can get a guy like Aitchison at 17, where he was projected more within the top 15, top 12, even some had him. Like I think you got to be happy with that. You can always move on from guys. You can move guys to the right hand side if needed. So I'd give them an A+ in the draft. Let's take a look now at their lineup going into next season. They had a couple UFA signings here. They're bringing in Drouin, of course, to play on that top line. They also bring in Riddick, pardon me, to back up Sorokin, as there's a bit of a question with Varlamov and an injury on him. Mark, I want to ask you though, like when I'm looking at this lineup, I'm looking at a lot of guys I think other teams could potentially be interested in via trade, right? Like we know there's a massive amount of teams that need a 2C. Right now, the Islanders, you got Barzal and you got Horvat. You got Pajot even on your third line. Like, do you think there's a lot of players on here that may get traded over this next year? And if so, who are those players?
Yeah, I mean, I when the more I looked into this, like this kind of lineup, the way their future is, I'm not convinced that they're gonna trade anyone else before the season. Yeah, I think that Darsh actually wants to be competitive, and I might not be like a lot of people might not agree with me on this, but I actually don't think they're that bad. I think that they improved a pretty decent amount up front. Like you didn't even mention, like, have you seen this Maxim Shabanov guy that they signed? This Russian free agent? Oh, dude, he is actually like he's 5'8", 170 pounds. But dude, he is so freaking skilled, dude. I think he's going to breathe some new life into their offense. Could be a third line guy or like a second line guy. But man, you gotta check out some of this guy's highlights, dude. Like he plays with such high pace. His hands are phenomenal. And he seems like a pretty decent playmaker for the most part.
44 assists last year in the KHL.
Put up over a point per game, dude. There was, I think, 4 or 5 teams bidding for his services. They beat out the Rangers getting him, dude, which kind of surprised me a little bit. I think maybe he's looking for opportunity. Like he's thinking maybe I could even be on the first line, like whatever happens, right? So the one thing I will say that I think one thing I'll say that makes me more optimistic about this team is I think there is more life in accordance to, like, they don't look like they're going to be as slow up front. Like you bring in the Shabanov guy, you might get the full year out of Duclair. You bring in a guy like Drouin who can push the pace. Barzal missed over half the season last year. So I'm just really curious to see how their forwards are really going to mix together. And it's not like I think they're going to be a super high scoring team, but I'm also not convinced that they're going to be like a very low scoring team, because Patrick Waugh at the same time he likes to push the pace and get offense, right? So, I mean, the one thing is like now Pollock's their top pair right D instead of Dobson. Will Matthew Schaefer play this year, or will he go to college or back to the OHL? I think they're going to push for a wild card spot. I'm not necessarily convinced they'll get it, but I think that Darsh thinks that they could compete for a playoff spot, and I think that they could definitely move some guys out, but I don't think it's going to happen until like the deadline or mid-season when they're out of it. But if you're talking about guys that potentially could be moved out, I think the number one guy I am looking at right now would be JG Pageau.
Yep.
I think this, because of the demand for centerman, he's a pretty solid two-way third-line center. You could eat half of that contract, and you'd probably get a good return, to be honest. And even my thing is, too, is like the one thing I was wrestling with while making this lineup. So for listeners, I've got Duran with Barzal and Palmieri, Holmstrom with Horvat and Shabanov, Lee with Pageau and Duclair, and Heineman with Cizikas and Siplikov. My one thought was, dude, is Callum Ritchie making this team?
I was going to ask you that.
Like, I with their lineup right now, I don't know.
The other thing, too, you got to consider with Ritchie is if you are bringing Ritchie and playing him in the NHL, like you're going to have him in your top 9. You're not playing him on the fourth line, right? You don't really want to be doing
So does that mean you ship out Pageau right away?
I think
like after camp, like maybe even keep him for camp, see if Richie's ready. Maybe even the first couple games, whatever, Richie might not play every game, right? And if he's playing good enough where it's like he's a third line center already, like a team that's desperate in the first 10 games might take who didn't get a center in the offseason, like maybe they go for it, you know?
Like, I think the Islanders, like, I agree with you. I think they're in a way better position than last year. I don't know, though, if they're going to be going for a wild card spot. Like, the way I'm looking at this is you got Richie, I think he's NHL ready. I think he should be in the NHL next year, right? So it's like, where does he fit in? And then even looking at some of the guys in university that they have, like, I think Yzerman, I don't think he's not starting the year there, but I think Yzerman's a guy that you're probably going to bring into the NHL at the end of the college season next year, right? And it's like, when you get to that point, where does he fit in? I'm just looking at it from the Islanders' perspective. Like, you got a fair bit of assets here right now. A lot of these assets, other teams would probably be very interested in, considering some of these guys' cap hits in term left. It's like you can open up room for some of these young players to come up and play and bring on a shit ton of assets and really be absolutely set with draft capital and young prospects for the next 10 years, right? That's more the way I'm kind of looking at it. Like, so with Richie, what do you think the more likely scenario is with him?
I would try to get him in the NHL, because I don't think he can't go to the NCAA, right? So
yeah,
because he's signed. So I don't really know if him going back to the O is really a great idea. I will say, though, it's just a little bit, when I look at their lineup, like, I don't actually mind the 12 forwards they have. Like, I don't look at any of them and they're really bad. Like, you know what I mean? They shouldn't be playing. Like, I don't know, like, who would come out? Like, is Duclair that guy because of the relationship with Waugh? Like, right? Like, and then Richie, maybe does he start on the wing, or does he like play almost like a hybrid center where he's like taking some draws, or like, you know what I mean? Like, is that the answer? Because it's like, to be honest with you, dude, they wanted Emil Heineman in that Dobson trade. And to be honest with you, as like a guy watching him last year, he's a guy that brings a lot of energy. He could chip in scoring wise. And I think they're trying to kind of reinvent their bottom six after like Martin and Clutterbuck. I don't think Heineman's a guy to be taken out of the lineup, to be honest with you. So I don't really know what the answer is right now, but I guess if I had to make a decision, I would probably have Duclair as like my 13F and put in Cal Ritchie.
Yeah, I do that, or I'd even trade Duclair. Like, I'm looking at it.
Do you think it's tradable, though? Do you think that contract's tradable?
Without a doubt. without a doubt.
Really? See, I don't know, dude. I just think that
Considering Tanner Jeannot got signed for pretty much the same AAV, but an extra 2 years on top of it, I think with the cap going up and how we saw a lot of these contracts go out in UFA, I think a lot of teams would take on Duclair for $3.5 million. Like, yeah, the term at 3 years is not really the best, but
yeah,
I
that's
think
more
there's
what
still
I'm
some teams
thinking
that'd
of,
be
right?
interested in it.
There's just he's been on a lot of teams, right? So, and he signed a lot of like 1 year
Yeah.
deals. That's why I'm more like, do you think someone would take that on? But
The
I
other
don't know.
one I'm
Domi was in the same category, right? And
yeah.
he re-signed for that long. And if the Leafs traded him, I think someone would take him too. So
The other one I'm looking at too is Paul Mary. I think Paul Mary could be interesting. I could see some teams there being a bit of buzz around him. The thing with that though is it's hard because
he
he
just
yeah, he
re-signed, though,
just
is the
re-signed
thing,
and
right?
he wants to be there, right? So you can't really trade a guy like that, pardon me, but if you get to trade deadline next year and the Islanders are out of it, like maybe he's open to a trade.
See, I think he's got a good opportunity. Like, I like Duran with Barzell and Palmieri. I think you could
Yeah.
set up Palmieri to maybe even score 30, dude.
Yeah.
With two playmakers like that who can push the pace. Like I really like that connection together, and I'm curious to see what they can do. I mean, this Islanders team overall, like we've kind of touched on a lot of points. Other guys that I think maybe could make the roster or like be like maybe not in the opening night lineup, but on the team. Mark Gatcom, he played on a lot of people aren't really familiar with him. He kind of filled in when there was injuries last year and was a pretty good depth guy. He might be up and down with Bridgeport. We talked about Cal Ritchie, Isaiah George on defense. He played a lot of NHL games last year, dude, when they had injuries. He was up and down with Bridgeport. Patty Waugh really likes him. I think I think if Matthew Schaefer isn't on the team, he's probably their third pair lefty to start the season, to be quite honest with you. And then the other two defensemen I'm kind of looking at, they re-signed Adam Boquist this year after getting him off waivers. And then they signed Ethan Bear as well. He got a 2-way deal. I think he's most likely to go to the AHL. And then one last thing as well, you talked about the David Riddick signing. Semyon Varlamov, he was out most of last year. They're still uncertain on whether he will ever play again as of right now. So that's why they brought in Dave Riddick. So hopefully Varlamov can get back to healthy. Dude, if they could imagine they got Sorokin Riddick, Varlamov comes back mid-season and is fully healthy, and like Varlamov's got what 2.75 times 2 left. A team would trade for that.
Yep. Too many
100%.
dude. Yep.
He'd be a very good stabilizer to be like he'd be a very solid 1B or backup goalie. So the Islanders, I'm pretty optimistic about them moving forward. I don't think they're making the playoffs this year, but they look like they're in a hell of a lot better of a situation than they were probably even like 18 months ago.
Yeah, I'm all with you on that. Mark, I want to ask you, what's their offseason grade?
I'll go A.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm gonna give them an A. I love the draft that they had. Some of their signings are great. I'd maybe like to see them move out a player or two to get a bit more assets back, but that's my one nitpick for them.
It's like they got as much as I love Dobson in Montreal, they got a good return. They got a depth forward. They got that Russian guy, Shabanov. The Drouin, I think, is a pretty good ad. And then they didn't really need to do anything on defense, at least for the current term, with maybe Schaefer coming in. They re-signed Tony DeAngelo, who I thought was actually pretty good on their power play last year. It's kind of low risk 1 year as well. And then bringing in Riddick. Yeah, I mean, the only thing, the reason I wouldn't do A+ is I don't love the Romanov contract, and then the Aitchison pick's a little confusing. So that's why I'm just going with an A.
Let's move out and take a look at Utah and the new look Mammoth. They might have made the biggest splash in the trade market acquiring JJ Peterka. They also made some UFA signings for guys lower in their lineup. They had a couple guys too that were RFAs that they had to deal with. The Peterka one, it was an RFA sign and trade. So that was major hit for Utah. Mark, what do you think about that trade? We'll start off with that.
Yeah. I definitely feel like Utah needed to bolster their forward group, and we'll probably get into it a bit more. I still think they do. But I think Paterka is a nice add for their top six. He was pretty good with the Sabres the last couple seasons. It's a guy who's younger and he's just kind of getting better every year, right? He's almost hit the 30 goal mark the last two seasons. Playing on a team that obviously there isn't a whole lot of life. There's a kind of a bunch of like empty calorie games, like where it doesn't really mean much, and there's like because they're not going to make the playoffs, right? So I really like this trade for Utah, to be quite honest. And the one reason I say that is Josh Doan was up and down from the A last year to the NHL.
Yep.
I actually think he is probably more of like a bottom six piece in the future, like maybe a good third liner who can play like a hard nosed game. He also has a pretty good shot as well. And then when you're talking about losing like Mike Kesselring, I think Mike Kesselring played pretty well for them last year. They got him in a trade from Edmonton. He's a huge guy, 6'5", like pretty good two-way. I think he had 20 points, cheap cap hit. I think Buffalo targeted a player like him because he's coming off an ELC, a right-handed shooting defenseman, and he's got no trade protection, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably a guy that they think they can maybe get done long-term. I don't really mind losing him as much if I'm Utah because I have John Marino, I have Sean Durzi, I have Maverick Lamoureux in the pipeline. I've been seeing a lot of things that they should and will be going for a top pair right defenseman. It's a little confusing to me, because I thought that they thought that Sean Durzi was going to be that guy. I don't know if they just don't think he is that guy or what they would do. Maybe they would package Durzi or Marino with something else to get a better guy. But I think for the most part, it's a really good trade for Utah because Mike Kesselring, I think, is getting to the point where I actually think he probably deserves a shot in the top four because of like the amount of limited bodies, and he had a really good sample size. I'm not saying he is a top four defenseman, but I like the fit on Buffalo, to be honest. But I still think Utah won this trade because they have a surplus of right-handed defensemen. It would have been nice to keep Josh Doan, but I mean, you're getting a solid top six player who is probably even more closer to being a first liner than like a third liner, right? And he's still young and he's got a lot of time to grow, and he kind of fits in well, like with the age of this core as well.
Yeah, and when you look at the core too, like these are only guys in the NHL that you're talking about right now too, right? Like you still got Daniil Boot, who's like where's he going to be next year? You got TJ Ginla, who they took sixth overall in last year's draft. Where's he going to be next year? And what's his future with this team, right? So you already got two forwards right there that are in the pipeline, and it's like, where do those guys fit in? And if you're Utah, like it's kind of similar to Ottawa, right? Where it's you kind of have your young core and you don't want to be signing any guys to these long-term contracts where it's going to make that pipeline for the players to come up a lot more difficult. Let's take a look at their draft right now. I think these guys had a phenomenal draft with who they took fourth overall. They take Caleb Deshoyne. The big thing we've been talking about with Utah for the past season or so now that they're a team that is wanting to be in the playoffs is they got a big hole there to see with Hayton. He's probably better to be a third line center. They get their two line C for the future in Deshoyne. What do you think about the pick mark, and what do you think a timeline on him may be?
Yeah, I mean, there was even rumors that he could go higher, he could go lower. I know a lot of people have been super high on him because he has the offensive upside, but also plays that style that you want in the playoffs while being very committed to defense at the same time. A lot of kind of comparables are like peak Sean Couturier, which I think was like a super solid second line center, right, for the Flyers.
Yeah.
I think that upside wise, we're looking at 60-ish points, like on at least the average per season. And I think that ETA to the NHL, don't think he'll get a spot this year. I think it's even possible that he spends his draft plus one either in the Q or the NCAA, and then he could be even ready to go the year after.
Yeah.
Besides that, I would say, honestly, bearing things went wrong in his development, I think he's max 2 years and then ready.
I want to ask you, Mark, about some of these other prospects that they have, especially the forward ones. Because looking at their forward group, like they got their big guys locked in long term, but like Barrett Hayton, this is the last year of his deal. Schmaltz, last year of his deal. Lawson Krause, it's the last year of his deal. Kerfoot, it's the last year, pardon me, of his deal. So that's four guys within their top nine that are on the last years of their deal. You got TJ Imler, you got Daniil Boot in the system. Like, what do you think a timeline for those guys are? Who do you think's maybe the odd man out in the top
Yeah.
nine?
Yeah, I actually made a typo on the Kraus one. He's got 2 years left, but still, it's pretty.
Yeah.
It's coming soon, right? So, yeah. I mean, I think that I'm really curious to see with Utah what's going to happen with their 2 first-round picks from 2023 in Dmitry Simashev and Daniil Boot. Since we're talking about forwards, like more leaning to Daniil Boot, he's a big guy at 6'6", right?
Yeah.
He's more of like a power forward around the net type of guy. I'm gonna be honest with you, dude. I have a weird feeling that he might make the team this year and be in the bottom 6, and I think it might be a little bit of a mistake. I think he just needs some development time in the AHL before he makes an impact in the NHL. I think a guy like Lawson Krause is probably out by the time his contract's done in 2 years. A couple of these guys like Kerfoot and like Ian Cole, they had just re-signed. I actually wanted to talk about Nick Schmaltz, though, because I feel like he's a guy who doesn't get talked about a lot. And I know he's kind of had his moments where, like, I remember he had like that 7-point game, and like he's been a pretty consistent point producer for the most part in his career. But he's also a guy who played center, has now really become more of a winger.
Yeah.
Do you think there'd be a market for a guy like this? And then the question would be like, would Utah want to keep him? I just think that Utah needs to get bigger and meaner up front. And I don't think Nick Schmaltz is helping, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So I would be more optimistic to move him. Like, I'd even throw out his name right now and saying, like, we're listening on Nick Schmaltz. Because maybe some teams are like, yeah, we can get him to play 2C. Like we can make him a center again, right? So I think that, like, a Nick Schmaltz deal, if they were willing to do it, might fetch you a bigger return than you think.
Yeah, for me, if I'm Utah though, I don't know how much I'm listening, because this is a team right now where it's like I don't really think they like want, like, unless it's gonna make them better right now. I don't think Utah is gonna want to move off a guy like Nick Schmaltz, right? Like, I'm looking at their team right now, and I have the lineup in front of me for what we think it's gonna look like next year. But I'm even kind of thinking about what it's gonna look like when you got Boot, Deshoyne, and a Ginla in the NHL, right? Like, I think the two guys that are going to be the odd guys out are going to be Barrett Hayton and Alex Kerfoot. Like, Kerfoot's on a 1-year deal. He's for sure not in the long-term plan for Utah. I think he's going to be the odd guy out. And I also think it's going to be Barrett Hayton, right? Like, when Deshoyne is coming in, like, you drafted him to be your second line center. So that either means with Barrett Hayton, you're dropping him down to your third line, or you're moving him up to the wing. Because they also just re-signed McBain to a 5-year deal, right? Like, so it's clear that McBain's there for the future. I think with that, it's going to be Hayton that's going to be the odd guy out here.
So do you see them like entertaining re-signing Nick Schmaltz in the offseason, or even like maybe just letting him walk and like even trying to go after, like, if there's another big fish in free agency for the top 6 or something like that? Because I was even seeing theoreticals like I talked about them apparently wanting a top pair right D. I don't really know where they're getting that, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, Dobson was probably the best opportunity, but it's like, do they use Schmaltz to go get a top pair right D? I'm not necessarily convinced it's the right decision, because I think when we look at their bottom six, to be honest with you, I don't really love it. I think that they could still make some improvements. Like, I'm not even talking for the future. Like, I mean right now, like heading into the season. Like, I don't necessarily love Kerfoot, McBain, Krause, Tanev, Stenlund, O'Brien. I actually like the Brandon Tanev pickup. I think it's a good cap hit. I think he brings some energy to that team, and I think he's going to be a good player for them. But I think they need more. I don't think that's, like, if I had to say right now, I don't think this team is making the playoffs. I think they're probably going to be finishing around the same spot that they were last year, but I do think that they have cap space and they can make moves.
And they got and they got a decent prospect pool too, which is what I like the most. Like, I agree with you. I think their bottom six could definitely improve, but it's just like when you look at the free, like they're gonna have to do it through trade, right? And then if you're doing it through trade, that means you might have to be moving off one of these younger players that they're high on, which is kind of tough, right? Like, it's just when you look at the free agency market and what some of these bottom six guys are getting this year, like for a team like Utah, like who, like, do you want to be paying Tanner Jeannot $3 million on a 5-year deal to be playing on your third line if you're Utah, or do you just want to be like, we're gonna fill this internally when one of our young guys is ready, right? Like, if I'm Utah, I way rather have Daniil Boot prove himself and getting a shot in the NHL than go and sign a Tanner Jeannot, a player like that, for an overpriced contract. And
No, but I will say, like, if he was willing and it wasn't expensive for like third line right wing, honestly, dude, I'd be looking at like a guy like Roslovic
yeah,
to get some secondary scoring. And it's like, I don't think he's going to cost you an arm and a leg either, right? So I think, like, I look at their bottom six, like the guys I just mentioned, who's scoring goals? Tell me. Like, who's chipping in?
not really many of them there.
And it's like, I know they don't score a lot, but you still need guys to chip in, right? So
Yeah,
I just don't think it's going to be good if you're putting like all the pressure of scoring goals on like Gunther and Paterka. Like, I think that they do need like some depth to help them out. So I just look at a free agent like Jack Roslovic, and he's willing to take like a 1 or 2 year deal. Like, to be honest with you, dude, like I feel like if we, like, it was anything over 4 million, I probably wouldn't do it. But if it was like under that, I think he's good enough where it's like 40 points. Like, I'd be okay paying him that, right? So,
yeah.
there's been no connection with that team, or sorry, with Utah and that player, but I just look at the free agents and I'm like, I think that this is what they could do. One other thing before, I don't know if you were going to change kind of the topic or not. The one thing when I look at Utah, and I think they've got a lot of defensemen, man, like a lot.
They do.
Like, it's Sergachev, Dursey. They just signed Nate Schmidt. They got Marino. Then they got Ian Cole. They got Oli Mata. And then it's like, everything I've been hearing is that Dmitry Simashev is playing in the NHL.
Yep.
With the way their D is constructed, I don't know where he's playing unless they decide to scratch a guy like Ian Cole. But then it's also like, they've got Maverick Lamoureux. Is he going to the AHL or is he going to the NHL?
You have
Valimaki, what is he doing? Is he going back to the minors? Is he in the NHL? And then Nick DeSimone, I mean, he's kind of like an up and down guy, right? But and I think they also signed, if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure they signed Scott Perunovich. So, like, I don't know what their plan is, to be honest. I wonder if they do try to move one of these guys out. But the funny enough thing is that, like, Schmidt, they just signed. Oli Mata, they re-signed right before the deadline, and then Ian Cole, they re-signed right before the deadline. So it's like half of their D core they just re-signed. Probably their 3 worst D, quote unquote, right? So it's like, are you moving one of them out after you just signed them? Like, do you use one of these depth D to get a good depth forward? Like, that's probably what I would lean towards.
Yeah, no, I also wonder too. It's like you mentioned that they want a top pairing right-hand defenseman. Like, maybe you pair Sean Dursey and one of these younger forward prospects in a package for a top right-hand shot defenseman, right? Like, a guy that's coming to mind is Rasmus Anderson. Like, would you maybe do Sean Dursey and TJ Gamla for Anderson? I think I'm on it. Like, honestly, that might be a little too much for Anderson, but I don't think it'd be an absurd trade if you're Utah.
I think that would probably be dependent on an extension, but I mean, I kind of like the way the way your thoughts are kind of heading there. Like it does make a lot of sense. Um,
And the thing we know with
yeah, I
Utah
don't know.
too
I'm
is,
not really convinced they need it. Like I just like they could use a top pair right D, but it's like they've got their anchor in Sergachev, right? So
yeah,
like I just think priority should be depth up front because it's like as much as I'm saying they have a lot of D, like I don't mind their D. Like I really don't. Like Ian Cole's your worst defenseman. I think he could do a lot worse than that,
yeah,
dude. Right? And it's like Oli Mata played a pretty big role with them last year when Marino was out and Dursey was out. Like I really don't mind the D core. I probably wouldn't touch it besides maybe trading one of these guys for a depth forward if they're not going to go out and sign one because yes, they have the assets where they could go trade. But it's like I don't really know if I want to be trading like TJ Ginlaw for like a third liner,
yeah.
right?
That's my whole thing.
Like I don't want to get caught in like the McLeod Savoy trade thing. As much as McLeod was really good for Buffalo, like I don't really think that kind of trade makes sense for Utah right now, right? Um, but yeah, I think they're set up nice for the future. Like the Desnoyers pick has really set them up pretty well. With I'm seeing a lot of holes filled, but I still don't like their depth up front right now. At all. Like I look at that bottom six and I'm like, where the hell are you going to get goals?
Yeah. So I want to ask you, Mark, what's your offseason grade for the Mammoth?
So far, good pick in the first round. Not really familiar with a lot of their other picks, to be honest. I know Max Senica. He's a big right-handed D who played like half the season in Czech and half in Portland. I can't really comment on the other guys, like I said. Off season, it was Tanev, it was Nate Schmidt, Vanacek. They got the Russians to come over.
Yeah. The
I'm gonna
McBain
go B
extension.
minus. Who extension? Oh, McBain. Yeah,
McBain.
yeah. It's kind of a lot of money, though, don't you think?
To be honest, I think that's what third line centermen are starting to get these days.
Yeah, I think the more with him, it's like he's more of a fourth line center who's like
Yeah.
could be a third line center, right? So that's why I'm looking at that. I'm gonna go B minus, dude. I like a couple of the signings, but it's like I don't think they filled out their bottom half of their lineup. Oh fuck, with the Paterka thing, I didn't even consider that. I'll go B. B. Paterka trade was good.
See, I'm sort of stuck between a B and a B minus. I'm gonna go with a B as well. I just think like I agree with you on the whole. Their bottom six is not where it needs to be, but I rather have the bottom six. Like I rather have the bottom six what it is now than them having to give a 5-year contract to somebody as a way overpay, and then when you get to a point where you're gonna have to be re-signing Cooley, you're gonna be having to re-sign Keller, you're gonna be having the Russians and TJ Gimla coming off their ELCs, you're going to be in straight cap hell. So
Yeah.
I'm happy with where Utah's at right now. I'm with you. I don't think they'll make the playoffs next year. I think they'll be kind of around where they were at this year, but
Do you think they're done though? Like I don't think they're done.
I don't
like
think
I do
I don't think
I do think they're gonna fill out their bottom six. Like I it's not that I'm sitting here being like they're not making the playoffs because they didn't do that. Like they've got 3 months to figure this out still, dude. Like I think they just weren't rushing, but it's like if I'm constructing the team, like you said, you're asking right now, their off season, it's a
yeah.
B. But it's like it could get better if they fill out their depth and get some scoring and you know what I mean. Maybe even bring in another Brandon Tanev like player, right? So yeah, I don't know. They could maybe in our preseason rankings we'll have them in. Like
Yeah.
you don't really know what could happen.
And who knows too some of these young guys if they're ready, right? Because like if TJ Ginla comes and he proves that he's ready and he's in the lineup, like that completely changes their forward group. Same with Boot, right? Like let's just say you have Boot and Ginla in their lineup. That means you go from having a third line of Kraus, Kerfoot, McBain to maybe you have a lineup with your third line being Schmaltz, McBain, Boot, right? Like that completely changes the depth for this team. And I'm with you too. Like they might make a trade or something that we don't know. Like if we know one thing about Utah, it's that they're fine making a splash via the trade market. In back-to-back seasons, we've seen them go out and get Sergachev via trade and then Paterka via trade. We know they're not
Yeah.
scared of making trades, so it's going to be interesting to see what they do here the rest of the offseason because I think they'll do some more for sure. Let's stay in the desert and go to Vegas and talk about the Golden Knights. They got their big whale in Mitch Marner. They did a sign and trade, and to do so, they shipped out Nick Waugh. The team also lost a big player for next season as Alex Pietrangelo is stepping away from hockey due to injuries. Mark, let's start off by talking about the Mitch Marner sign and trade. How did you feel about that?
Yeah. I think obviously like overall just looking at it like from Vegas's perspective and kind of leaving the whole track record of like the Leafs out of it in his past. I think this is a player that could really help this team, especially in the regular season. Like he's kind of bringing a type of play to their team that they don't really have, where it's like he's a super dynamic skater, really good playmaker, can create offense. He's obviously a pretty good two-way winger at the same time, right? So I like this for Vegas. Like at the same time, like you're getting him at a $12 million cap hit. You're not kind of paying him that ridiculous 14 plus that was rumored, right?
Yeah.
And I think that he could really help them. Like in accordance to like they sometimes they don't score a lot of goals, right? And it's like I know Marner's not a huge goal scorer, but it's like bringing in a guy that can help create offense and like create plays like is definitely going to lead to more like offensive chances, right? So I think bringing in a guy like Marner is he was the best offseason target out there, right?
Yeah.
So Vegas is always trying to go after those guys. And I think once now they have like the depth of Marner Stone on the right side, you're taking a lot of pressure off Mark Stone as well, where he's kind of playing more of a secondary role. And I think that will fit him a lot more. And you're giving Eichel like a really good player to play with. Not that he hasn't played with really good players, but like Marner is on a different level than Stone, in my opinion,
Yeah.
right? In accordance
At this
to like
point in their
creating
careers.
offense and stuff. Man, the one thing I was kind of thinking about that, like, not a lot of people talk about when accordance like bringing Marner to Vegas is like, man, they've got like 3 forwards now that have been either nominated or like are in the conversation for the Selkie, like
Yep.
with Eichel, Stone, and Marner. So it's like, if you're Bruce Cassidy, you've got a lot of faith in kind of getting matchups, right? And it's like the way I've got their lines constructed right now, it's almost like there's a really good defensive player on every single line that you'd probably be okay throwing out there, like to be able to shut someone down, right?
Yeah.
It's like you got Marner, Eichel, the first line, you got Stone on the second line, you got William Karlsson on the third line, and they just went out and we'll talk about they got Colton Sissons, who's a good shutdown fourth line center. So I think Vegas, it's going to be a lot of the same, where they're a good defensive team. And like they might struggle to score a bit, but I don't think it's going to be nearly as much with Marner. And I'm really curious to see how like Marner and Eichel are going to do together. Because the thing is, it's like Eichel's also a pass first guy, right? So
Yeah.
does Eichel just say fuck it this year and just start like, because Eichel always talks about how people tell him to shoot more, and it's like, dude, so fucking shoot, dude. Like it's like the one knock on Eichel's game that I always look at. And he's so good at everything else, right? That if you can turn Eichel into a goal scorer, dude, like this could be a really lethal combo.
Oh yeah, I think it's gonna be a great combo having Marner and Eichel, and I think you're gonna see Marner too. I think he's even gonna change his play style a little bit. Like when you're playing with a guy like Mark Stone, Jack Eichel, like I think you're gonna see like when you look at guys that have gone to Vegas, right? Like Jack Eichel when he was in Buffalo, he was really like just like all talent, all skill. Where now in Vegas, man, like he's a very complete player, right? Like when Jack Eichel was at Buffalo, who would have thought that you would have been saying that this guy could have been in the Selke nomination? Where now, like he's a guy that probably could be a Selke nominee some years, right? I think with Mitch Marner, like we're gonna see that a similar transformation where he's kind of building up on those parts that of his game that he was missing in Toronto. I want to ask you, Mark, because there's a player here that does stand out to me a little bit. It's Alexander Holtz. Is this the year that he might finally take some sort of step in becoming a full-time NHL player? Like, what do you think the plan with him is?
Yeah, I mean, he's been kind of he was really highly touted coming into the league, right? Like I
Yeah.
remember in the draft, everyone was saying, "Oh, dude, this guy is going to score a lot of goals in the NHL. He's got the best shot." People were even saying he went after Raymond, and everyone was
Yeah.
saying he could be better than Raymond, and like just hasn't been turning out the way that people thought at the NHL level. I don't know, dude. I will be honest with you. If I had to take a guess right now, I think this year Holtz will be up and down from the NHL, the AHL, and I think this is probably his last year in North America, and he might go back to Sweden.
Yeah.
The problem is, it's like Vegas isn't a team that's going to be like let you figure it out and ride with you, right? Like they gave him that sample size last year, it didn't work out. Like if he hasn't improved and figured it out this year, like I don't think they're going to give him much of a runway at the NHL level to figure it out. So I guess to answer your question, I don't think he's figuring it out this year unless he gets traded. And even that, it's like I don't know. He had an opportunity in New Jersey, dude. If he had, sure, he wasn't on the first line and whatever, but like if he started actually showing glimpses of promise, there was a spot in that lineup for him to take, and he didn't take it, right? So I don't know. I'm not really that optimistic on Holtz anymore. If I had to take a guess, I honestly don't think he's in the NHL next year. Like after this upcoming year, I mean.
Yeah. So we've talked about their forward group here a little bit. Looking at their defensive group, of course, they're losing Pietrangelo. It's been rumored that they have been kind of interested on Rasmus Anderson before the Mitch Marner sign and trade, and even after the Mitch Marner sign and trade. Apparently, they're still kind of knocking on the door a little bit there. How do you feel about this decor without Pietrangelo going into the season? Like, would you change anything?
I mean, yeah, it's hard to say it's not worse. Like it's definitely worse, but I mean, um, they couldn't fit in Nick Hague, right, at that price. Like it's just doesn't, it makes no sense. I really think they made the most of that trade though. Like I think they got like to get us a fourth line center and like a guy like he is like a third pairing defenseman, but he has played top four. Like if you put Lazon in the top four, I don't think he'd really look that out of place, to be honest with you. He's a guy who a couple years ago had the most hits in a single season in the NHL. So he's going to bring some physicality onto their team. And I mean, the real wild card, I guess, is just like, does Caden Korzak take a step to become an everyday NHLer and kind of thrive with it? Because he is a big guy who skates well and just hasn't became a full-time NHLer. But I mean, he's also never really been given the opportunity. Vegas has had the same decor since they won the cup and even before, right? Until they made these changes this offseason. Yeah. So I'm really they're high on him, dude. Like he's making $825 this year. They've already re-signed him for 4 years at $325. So they see him as part of the future. Maybe I won't be looking at this and saying the decor's worse if Korzak kind of is a player that they think he can become. But if you're looking at it on paper, like White Cloud was a third pairing defenseman who's playing on the second pair now. Like you can't really say that they're better. If I was them, dude, I'd go into the season with this decor. It's definitely above average. I would even say it's really good still, like without Petro. And I think if anything, you just wait till the deadline and you make a move, if anything. Like, I don't really think that there's a point in going out and trying to get a guy right now. Like, I don't really see the point when you just re-sign Korzak. Give him a shot. Give him half a season, see what he can do. Like, I don't know. Like, what do you think? Like, sometimes teams look worse on paper and then they're not, right? Sometimes giving youth the opportunity is almost better. So, yeah, they're worse on paper, but I don't think that it's bad at all.
No, I'm fully with you on that, dude. I think like their decor is a little bit worse on paper, but their forward group is also got a whole lot better, and they got a whole lot better defensively as well, right? Like, I think with the decor that Vegas has, they'll be just fine with how defensively reliable their forwards are, right? Like, if you threw this decor on a run and gun off the rush team, right? Like, yeah, maybe it does scare you a little bit, but on a team like Vegas with the style they play, I think the defenseman that they have is just fine. I'm with you. Wait till trade deadline next year, see what's out there then. Plus, at that point, maybe Like maybe you have somebody on LTIR and you can get a big fish for a playoff run or something like that, right?
Well, maybe Petro is miraculously healthy for game one of the playoffs too, right? So it's a Vegas special. We'll see. But like my question for you is like they lost. Petro's a big loss, right? Like
Yeah,
no doubt. Like would you like Theodore played a lot with McNabb, and Hannafin would play with Petrangelo. Since you're kind of down one horse, do you keep the other two horses together and ride them in like Hannafin Theodore? Or do you separate them and you go Theodore McNabb White Cloud Hannafin,
I think you said.
right? Or like I mean, there's no issue in putting them together at times and whatever. But I was kind of curious of what you thought about that because they obviously had a bigger luxury before. And I think it's a huge luxury that Theodore plays to the right side because I don't think a lot of this would turn out the way it did if he didn't.
See, I think you separate them because the other interesting thing with separating them is it also allows, like, it gives them a bit more responsibility, right? Because if they're playing, like if you have Hanathan and Theodore playing together, they can sort of shelter each other a little bit. Where if you have them, if you separate them, it really allows them to be like it really allows them to be the centerpiece of that pairing, right? Like they're the guy on that pairing. They're the leader, I guess, right? Like you're getting paid the big bucks. You ought to be the one performing, which I think could benefit them as well. I want to take a look at their draft now, Mark. Not too many draft picks. They did have a second and a third round pick, though. How do you feel about their draft? Any prospects we should keep an eye on?
Dude, I love their second round pick in Jacob Ice Wozniak. He was a guy that was like, I actually thought he was going to, I'm pretty sure I had him going 32 to Calgary, to be quite honest with you. He was kind of ranked even in the top 15 earlier in the year. He's a pretty good point producer with a good shot, dude. And I mean, 6'2", 190. I actually think that he's a guy that will be making the NHL in the future and probably being like a middle six guy. Who knows if it's actually with Vegas or not, though. Obviously, they trade a lot of prospects. There are other guys. I know Matteo Nobert a little bit. I think at most he's kind of projecting to be a fourth line center. And I'll be honest with you, there are other two guys I'm not really too familiar in Gustav Schwoquist, I think, and Alex Weirmeyer. Like you said, Vegas doesn't really pick a lot usually. They're usually involved in trades. But if we're talking about value, like I was super surprised that Wozniak was there at 55. So I'd give them credit on that. Like I just for that alone, I'd say their draft is like a B plus. Like for snagging that type of player at 55, to be honest. Because if it's like you get a guy who's probably got like middle six upside in like the late second round, like I'd say that's pretty good value, dude.
In this draft too.
Yeah. Like I think that there was a lot of players that were taken before him where I was like, who? And then like he went and I honestly thought he was gone. And I'm like, what? 55. I'm like, okay, like that's a good pick for Vegas, right? So I'd give him a B plus on their draft.
While we're talking about the drafting their young players, I want to bring up Trevor Conley because I think he might be. I think it might be the first time ever that Vegas has had their first round pick like playing within their organization after
Brisson.
not
Brisson.
playing, but
Brendan Brisson before they traded him last year. But yeah.
that's fair. What do you think the plan is for Trevor Conley? Like, how far out from the NHL is he? Do you think he'll ever play for Vegas? Will they just trade him?
I'd say like to answer the last question, I'd say it's probably pretty likely he gets traded. To be quite honest with you, I think that a lot of teams would probably just value him pretty high as a prospect. And considering that they have used some of their first round picks in trades, that a team might want that as the main asset. In accordance to like NHL readiness, he didn't have the greatest season at Providence College last year, but I mean, he could have also went a little bit higher in that draft. He is pretty high skilled and he's got a motor to his game. I would probably say that another full year in the AHL would do, a full year in the AHL would do him good. And then I wouldn't necessarily say he'd be ready for the year after. I guess it obviously depends how this season goes, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's kind of hitting the NHL at like 21, kind of more like what we're seeing like Isaac Howard's obviously going to be stepping in the NHL now. after spending 3 years at college. Obviously, Connolly, it's going to be a bit of a different path with him already signing his ELC at the end of last year. So I could see him probably spending 2 more years outside the NHL until he's a full-time NHLer.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see what he's up to, because that really, they're very limited on top end prospects. So,
would you say that Vegas, out of any team in the league, is the team that got better the most because of Marner? See, the thing is, it's like I kind of think they are. I think they are, but also it's like losing Pietrangelo is massive, right? But I don't know. It's like Marner in, Pietrangelo out. I'd still say that's an upgrade. I know it's different positions, but it's like they're better. Like I just don't know how much better.
It's kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. The other thing too that we haven't talked about too is, personally, I think they got a massive fucking hole with their goaltenders.
Oh, really?
I love Aiden Hill. I don't know if Akira Schmid's an NHL backup. Like,
I don't know.
If one of those goalies gets injured, like who's your third goalie, right? Like, you look at some teams around the NHL, it's like you got your 2 goalies, and then even your third goalie is like a pretty, like you can rely upon him. Where like I think Akira Schmid's probably better suited as like an AHL starter, a guy you gotta maybe call up a couple times throughout the year, right? So
you know who I'd go after right now if I was Vegas, and you might think I'm crazy, as a backup, because I thought he actually played well at the end of last year. He'd be cheap, as James Reimer.
I'd be perfectly fine with that. I think that makes them better. If you have Hill, Reimer, and then you have Schmid in the AHL, I think that makes them a lot more reliable there in net. But
yeah,
overall, though, I think they do got better. I think it's one of those things where it's kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back with the whole getting Marner and then losing Pietrangelo. I'm going to say they got better. Mark, what grade do you give them for their offseason?
I'm thinking A. Because realistically, it's like the Pietrangelo loss has nothing to do with the way they handle the offseason, right?
They can't do it.
I honestly think I'm going A. Look, dude, Riley Smith at $2 million, Brandon Saad at $2 million. Those are good deals, in my opinion, for depth. Like, I think those guys could have got more on the open market, to be quite honest. Saad, maybe not a lot more. I think Smith maybe could have got maybe more term. Like I said, I love that Sissons and Lazon for Hague trade. I think they got 2 pieces, like, for the price of like more of what Hague would have costed, right? Like, they retained half on Sissons. You're getting him for under $1.5 million. Lazon's $2 million, right? So that's really good work. Yeah, I mean, the backup goalie is the one position where I'm kind of and I don't know, like their forward depth is kind of fine. Like, unless they go out and get another depth forward that might be like in and out of the lineup, I'd say that's probably a thing to do. Like, unless you want to give Holtz or Cole Schwint that role, but maybe a depth forward, and if they can get a backup goalie. But besides that, that's kind of nitpicking. Like, I'd say it's an A, to be honest with you.
I'm all with you on that, dude. I think it's an A for me. If at this point they had gone out and gotten a depth forward and a depth goalie, I'd be giving them an A plus. But they haven't yet, so I'll give them an A. Let's take a look and move outside of the NHL. Next year's projected first overall pick, Gavin McKenna. He's going to be leaving the CHL for the NCAA. He announced he'll be playing at Penn State. He joins a team that already had a very good season last year, and they're bringing in notable CHLers Luke Misa and Jackson Smith. Mark, what's your reaction to McKenna going to Penn State?
Yeah, it's kind of pretty crazy, dude. I mean, it's been rumored for quite a while, so like I'm not super surprised. I guess just because they're investing a lot into their hockey now. I know they haven't had like the most successful program, like they haven't been winning national championships or anything really, right? But I don't know, man. Like, are you like, I'm not surprised because it was rumored, but I guess I'm just more surprised like that's the destination a bit. or you know what I mean? Because it's there's some other hockey schools that
Yeah.
you could argue might be bigger or more successful. And I guess I'm just a little surprised that maybe he didn't try to entertain one of those. I don't know if it came down to like NIL money or what exactly it was, but maybe he's also just thinking, I go there, I'm going to be like the best player. There'll be a lot of notice on me. I'm still going to be playing with good players. Like, who fucking knows, dude, if Michael Meese is going there with his brother? Like, I don't freaking know.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they could, maybe there's other players that go there. Like, I totally believe that if Martone is not signing with the Flyers, that he's going to Penn State. I think they'd love to have him there. He'd be right in the Flyers' backyard. Right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't know. I'm surprised, but I'm not surprised because it was rumored, but I'm surprised on the destination.
See, I'm not overly surprised because when you look at it, like when you look at the overall college landscape, like not just hockey, with the whole NIL thing, like Penn State, like Penn State's it's a massive school. They got a lot of NIL across all their sports, right? So, like I agree with you. Like there's like some more historical teams that, like traditionally, I guess you'd think maybe he'd more be willing to go there. But I think with the whole NIL thing, it completely changes it, right? Because it's like, okay, you look 5 years ago, like who North Dakota would have had a way better program than a school like Penn State, right? Like North Dakota, like it's a small school. They don't have a lot of NIL donors. Where Penn State, like you're a massive school, you got a whole lot of NIL coming. Like I think for college hockey, you're really going to start to see it change where some of these schools that traditionally haven't had great hockey programs are gonna have good hockey programs just based off the whole NIL and the investments going in, right? I'm trying to think of some other teams that may be like that. Like maybe a Minnesota might be a team like that where they kind of start to lose some talent where they used to got because some of these other teams start getting higher end players. Mark, how do you think this changes kind of the hockey landscape though? Like, do you think now we're really going to start to see the flood of players leaving for the NCAA?
Yeah, I don't know, right? Because I think it's different when we're talking about like a projected first overall pick compared to like even just a player that's drafted, right? Like there's still a decent amount of players that were either like outside of North America and are coming to North America after being drafted and playing as like an import in the CHL. There's even been word on some guys that were drafted this year, even pretty high, and they're not seem like they're going to NCAA. Like Jake O'Brien goes top 10. He signs his entry level contract. He can't go to NCAA anymore.
Yeah.
Same with Lyndon Lakovic. He goes 27th to Washington. And then, like I was telling you yesterday, like Keishon Aitchison and Porter Martone like have not made up their mind. Like they don't like they're still considering all options. So they could go back. Like I do think it's going to change, and we will obviously see players go there like we have. But I think that it's not going to be like everyone, because if you're a guy who's, say you're drafted mid-round, and like mid-rounds, like fourth, third, maybe even fifth, like you might not be physically almost like mature enough yet to play at that level. And I know that you could go there and build the muscle, but it's like, okay, for instance, let's say Luca Romano. It's the guy we talked about earlier, right? He's, I think, 5'11", 170.
Yeah.
He's pretty feisty. He's doesn't put up a ton of points. I don't think he's going to be a huge point producer. I'm going to be honest with you, dude. I don't think Luca Romano, at least this season, should be going to the NCAA. Because I think that a guy like him would probably not get in the lineup every night. And there's going to be too many older guys that would take a spot from him. And then you're already limiting the amount of games he's playing. I think that he could try and build some muscle while staying in Kitchener next season. And then maybe if he has a huge offensive season, or it's almost like he's outgrown the league, but he's not ready for professional, then he can go to the NCAA.
Yeah.
So it's like some players like that, it's like I don't think it really makes sense for them to take that next step, at least right out of their draft, to go to NCAA. It's not that I don't think they should ever, but it's even like another guy like Adam Benak. He's a guy we've kind of seen for the past year or so, a really small centerman out of Czech Republic, tore up the freaking U18s or whatever it was with the most points ever in the tournament, I think it is. Whereas the Halinka last year, I don't freaking know. He gets drafted by Minnesota in the 4th round. He played in the USHL last year.
Yep.
He's apparently going to Brantford in the O, right? He's puny. He's 5'8". He's probably going to get eaten alive if he goes to college right now. So may as well let him go to CHL, gain some more confidence, and then maybe college is a route eventually. So yes, it's going to change, to answer your question, but I'm not convinced it's changing for everyone.
Yep, I'm with you on that, dude, because we even talked about this like off the podcast the other day too, but you also got to consider too, like when you're going to college, you still got to go to classes. Like it's not like McKenna's just going to go play at Penn State. Like he's still got to go to classes. He's still got to kind of live the college life a little bit, where it's like for a guy like Jake O'Brien who just got drafted, signs his ELC. He's going back to the Hamilton Bulldogs, right? Well, he's done high school. He's done high school. He can focus on being a full-time hockey player now, right? Like he doesn't have to have that outside distractions with being a student. Like he can be in the gym whenever he needs to be. He can be on the ice whenever he needs to be. I think with the CHL, like you're gonna see maybe some of these players that are playing for good programs in the CHL might be more inclined to go back just based off the fact that, look, I've been drafted now. I don't have to deal with high school. I can go back. I can be with my trainer. I can be on the ice as much as possible, really live a more pro-life style compared to maybe going in college. And yes, it's maybe a better competition, but that the lifestyle is maybe not as much pro ready, right? So I think that's another thing guys are going to sort of have in the back of their mind. I think it's going to be very kind of case to case for these players. Right?
Yeah. I think it definitely depends on like physical maturity and like time. People think that like timeouts, time to get to the NHL, like kind of what your team is projecting. I mean, Jake O'Brien was kind of a guy I thought maybe could use college just to like build strength and whatever, but maybe like my one thing is it's like, it really will be a case-by-case basis, because if you tell a guy like you're going to be going from 66 games to 30, they might hate that, dude. Like as much as you can spend more time, like some guys like playing like every second night or every third night, right? So maybe they don't think it's going to really help their development like long-term, right? So it will definitely be like a case-by-case basis, in my opinion. We probably will see some other top guys sign their ELCs and not go to college and maybe stay. Yeah, or maybe even go back to the CHL, whatever it is, right? But it will change for sure. Like some of these top guys will go to play better competition, get them more NHL ready, but not every player is the same, right? Like everyone develops differently. It's not like you can go to the CHL and not go to the NCAA and never be an NHL player. Like it's happened many times in the past, right? So it definitely changes the way that you can kind of go through the ranks, and it gives you a lot more options now with this rule being changed, but I don't think it's for everyone.
Mark, and I want to ask you one more thing here before we wrap up the podcast. What's the over-under on Gavin McKenna points at Penn State next year? To put it in perspective, Macklin Celebrini, while at Boston University, in 38 games played, he had 64 points. What do you think McKenna has?
Fantilli was around the 60 mark too, I think, when he was there. Eichel was, I think, 71. I heard that a couple days ago. Dude, I think that you could even set that over under at 63 and a half, right near Celebrini, dude. Why not?
I was thinking 70.
Really?
Yep. I think Gavin McKenna's that good, dude. And he's going to be playing on such a good Penn State team. Like, I think I put it at 70.
You think he's a potential Hobie winner next year?
I think he's a lock for the Hobie, dude. I'd put my house. If I had a house, I'd put my house on McKenna winning the Hobie next year.
Well, last time when I said that, it didn't turn out too well. So at least you're saying it this time. I mean, he definitely has a better chance with Isaac Howard signing his ELC. Yeah. Like, right? And even like Leonard's gone, Perreault's gone. We don't really know about Hagens, to be honest with you, if he's going back or he's signing, whatever has happening with him. But maybe, dude, like maybe it is that like Celebrini is more of a complete player, right? Maybe with McKenna, it's because he's a winger, it's more offense. 70's not really that outrageous, I think.
Yeah.
More that I think about it.
It's definitely going to be college hockey next year. Definitely is going to be fun to watch. I already can't wait. Mark, we also got an update from last week's episode. I know last week we made a little handshake bet with the Mikael Granlund projections for his contract. So the news is he has signed for a dollar amount. The AAV does have a 7 in front of it. So when we're talking about the Anaheim Ducks and doing their little deep dive through the offseason, I will be wearing some money shades for the 15 minutes or so that we're talking about them. So you'll definitely be wanting to tune in for that. But for everybody tuning into this episode, thanks for tuning in.